Hello and welcome. This is Highly Articulated. I am Adam, as the name in the corner suggests, and we got a pretty fun show for you today. We are going to be looking at action figure lines that kind of make you ask why. What was the motivation? Who was in the meeting that green lighted this product? Um, Joining me today, friend of the show, regular contributor and co-host, Jeremy. What's going on, my friend?
Oh man, just doing a lot of dad stuff here lately, and collecting when I can in between. So, my young son Jeffrey, who was totally not named after a toy store giraffe, Jeffrey has been a handful. And But it's been a ton of fun, man. We were doing something they call tummy time today, where
Mm-hmm.
we had him on his stomach and we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to get him to lift his head and crawl, you know.
And
And
he's 5 months.
no, he was born October the 7th.
Oh, geez, I thought he was. So my young son is 7 months. I thought they were a little closer together. But,
No, yeah, he's October the 7th. So
oh yeah, he's
um
still he's still tiny. He's still little.
yeah, he's getting big though. Anyway, I could talk about that little rascal all day long, but look, I'm really
That
excited.
that's the show, man. Whatever we want to talk about, we can do it.
I'm
Welcome
really
to Dad
excited.
Time with Jeremy and Adam.
Yeah, on the most polite toy podcast that exists on the internet here. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the topics because like some of these, it's like I had them when I
Mm-hmm.
was younger, and I don't know why because
Mm-hmm.
I two of mine are feature film related, right?
Yep.
And I had these, and I can't for the life of me figure out when I got them, why I got them, because I wasn't allowed to see
The
that
movie.
movie, right?
Yeah.
So, but here, I guess we'll get into that in a little bit.
And I should say I'm going to preface this as well, and we talked about this sort of before we jumped on. I'm going to preface this by saying these are toys that we're kind of like, why does this exist? However, there's some toy lines in here that are pretty awesome toys, and
Mhm.
just like you, Jeremy, there's a bunch of these figures that I had. Um, there's a couple lines that I didn't have that I sort of came across while we were looking these up, and so those are going to be a little bit. Those will be brief ones where we're kind of like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But a lot of movie lines, and we'll go through a bunch of movie lines, and there's a lot of movie lines that we didn't even put in the list. Um, but like, think of a movie, there was probably an action figure to go with it if it was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, there's some weird stuff, man. And unfortunately, Patty was meant to be with us today, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it just because of dad responsibilities, which is fair enough. I
That
mean,
stuff.
it's effectively Christmas time. I guess family comes first, allegedly. Um, but he submitted one, and I was like, "Are you sure about this one? Because this is a great toy line."
Yeah. I don't want to spoil it. You told me what it was, but I think when you told me, I just looked up like,
Yeah.
what? Like, it like you were saying, if it was on the silver screen in the late 80s to early 90s, it was going
Hmm.
to get an accompanying toy line, except for like the instances we spoke about in the other episode we did, which is why don't they have one? So there's a couple of these properties that I'm talking about that are in existence that were
Hmm.
marketed for children, but Home Alone didn't get one. You know,
And we'll get
Boggle
into that a
the
little bit
line.
too, because it's sort of like I guess ultimately there's some things that are just quite toyetic, even though the IP in some way isn't.
Right.
And it's fascinating that some things will get the green light, and we'll have in some cases like multiple waves of these lines, and you're just like, oh, so they went back. They were like, well, it's good enough for
Are
wave
are
one, we'll
are
go
you
back for wave two.
are you talking about my non-Hollywood
Well,
pick?
yeah, that's
Okay.
there's certainly one where I was like, wait, one wave I could understand, two waves.
like Jack Pacific put out one wave and they were like, okay, we'll see what happens, and then like I think it got to three. Anyway, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. As we very often do, we will start with this week's pickups in things that we got. Now, I didn't get it this week, but this is I will mention it, and it'll make sense why I mentioned it. I still haven't opened my Mythic Legions Deluxe Legion Builder
Beautiful.
Half Giant, which I'm really looking forward to opening. I will probably do a live unboxing on Open Late. I really want to get this accessory pack head on him. So I'm just I've got this bad habit now that I've started doing those videos where like I'll leave the toys that I want to open the most in the box for the longest because I have to like wait till I have time
Right.
where I'm not chipping ice off the deck or like taking kids to like events at school and stuff like that. So Jeremy, yeah, I mean, you've only got the one little guy, but I got three that are competing for my collector time. Um, but what did you pick up this week?
I had a pretty good week. I had two military lines come in from. I'm sorry. Well, action figures from two different military lines that I'm equally excited about. So, first, my Action Force order came in. So we got the Swarm Sentry.
Nice.
Right there. It's a repaint, but it's a good repaint, right?
Yeah, it's a fantastic. That's a great looking figure. That gold and black.
Yeah,
Gecko, like
if you're
so
gonna do
good.
a repaint, like this is the reason to do it, and like
Mhm,
those Night Ops Steel Brigades, right?
mhm,
No shame in that whatsoever. I'm
mhm,
100% on board, and I got the new named character named Blowback,
mhm.
right? And it was kind of interesting. I was reading his file card on the back because one of his MOSs or his military occupation specialty was an 89 Bravo, an ammunition specialist, and that was actually my first MOS in the Army. And I have three now. Yeah, I got three. So anyway, but yeah, that was my first one. So I thought that was cool. And I'm honestly, after getting the figure and looking at it, I know there's a whole lot of glare, but after getting the figure and looking at it, I think I'm about 99% sure I'm going to go back and get another one and do it
Mhm.
and at least attempt a custom Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell. Because I think I can get a little bit of gray dry brush on the sides right there and kind of
Mhm.
age him up a little bit.
Mhm.
And I think he would look really cool like that. And I have that all black Army Builder body that I can put that head on. So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to give it a shot, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Some of the extras that I had in my Action Force figures got Marvel Legends like MCU heads. So there's definitely possibility for customizing and sort of army building, even with different heads. And but like you said, I mean, just a quick dry brush and you've got a different character effectively.
oh,
Pop
yeah,
a head,
for sure.
swap a head. So
That's really the great thing about Action Force though is that all the modularity with all the
mhm,
accessories that it comes with,
mhm.
I mean, you can take that thigh holster off of him with the vest and all that stuff, and just kit out an entire new figure.
Yeah,
So military lines, I got two more figures in from a real American hero. I got Dusty.
nice.
So really happy about him. I was
Mhm.
hoping to get the other version of Dusty first, because that was in my like probably top 5 Joes when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The one that came with Sandstorm, his
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
his little
yeah.
friend. I'm sure they're gonna do it. I just gotta wait long enough.
I hope so. I love that version too. That little coyote is phenomenal.
Dude, that version of that figure is fantastic, dude.
Uh-huh.
I love it. And Zarana came in.
Uh-huh. Great looking
So
figure.
yeah, she looks great. Sorry to all you inbox collectors about this Tumblr art that they put on there. I'm sure there's an audience. I'm sure somebody loves it, but yeah, I'm
I
not a fan. I mean, they went from like this stuff with Dusty.
uh-huh.
You know what I mean? It's like, and then you've got this like Cartoon Network thing going on here. But hey,
I
whatever.
will fulfill my shill quota for the day and say I actually love the diversity of the art in that line. I love that like no two boxes look the same. I shouldn't say that because Kamakura and Zorana sort of have that same cartoony aesthetic.
Yeah,
Um, but I like that they're different. I like that everyone has a different artist. To the best of my knowledge, they haven't repeated an artist. So So it'll be interesting to see how far they go with that, whether they sort of continue on or whether they streamline it. I've said it in another video too. Like, I kind of like the plastic-free packaging because now I get more art. I'm going to open it anyway, and I get them shipped to me from online retailers. So it's not like I'm picking the best paint apps anyway. If it has an issue with it, I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through Hasbro and try to get something out of it anyway. But I'm also not.
Good luck. Did you see the post I put in the 3POA podcast group as the list of demands that Hasbro gave to me so that I could get a right hand for my Storm figure because it came back with 2 left hands.
And you won't get a right hand. That's my biggest complaint about Hasbro's sort of policy, is that because I had a few issues with figures, and like some of them I could fix. Some of them were like cosmetic blemishes that I were like, I don't have them in here. I had a Spider-Man that was like came out of the factory with the paint kind of wet, and the way that it was kind of wedged in the package, he has like a scratch in the paint on his back, but it's on his back. And I was like, I don't need another one. I'm not going to go and buy another one to get the paint fixed. But I submitted my complaint, and they're like, well, we don't have that in stock, but we can offer you whatever. And that wasn't the first dog and pony show that I've had to do with Hasbro, so I actually knew what they were going to ask for. I haven't got my sort of replacement figure yet, but it could be a Power Ranger, it could be a My Little Pony. You don't know.
Well, to be fair, as my northern friends like to say, to be fair, right?
We do say that.
They're a massive corporation.
To be fair, we do say that.
They're a massive corporation, and I'm sure that hundreds of people, probably on a weekly basis, are trying to scam them, right?
Yes.
Into getting free product for something. So the links that they go to in order to make sure that these claims are actually genuine in nature, okay, I get it. But at the same time, when I had an issue with a Valaverse order that happened, I went through the proper channels. I didn't DM Bobby. I went through the proper channels and said, hey, what's happening with this? My corrected order was sent out the next day with extras in it, right?
I had the exact same experience.
Yeah.
I had a gear pack that had the helmet had an issue.
Right.
And I sent them a picture, and I sent them, my address, and I'm in Canada. So 8 months later, no, it's like 2 weeks or something like that. But I mean, it had to clear customs and everything. So 2 weeks is actually pretty quick, really.
Right. Yeah.
The replacement part was in my hand. So absolutely no complaints. And I've had very similar experiences with 4 Horsemen. I've had very similar experiences with Super 7. So, full credit to most of the small sort of boutique retailers. NECA does not make my short list of brands that I can say have great customer service. I'm still 2.5 weeks waiting on a email that I sent and a Facebook message follow-up to say, did you get my email? I have not had a reply to either. Right. But we're not here for that. We're not here
you are trying to communicate with a toy company during Christmas time, though. So,
and I absolutely understand that.
To be fair,
but even like my opinion though is that like even like, hey, it's busy. We'll get to you when we have the opportunity.
Right.
I think would be fair enough, right? Like that. Yeah. That to me at least shows that like my Facebook message. So I work in retail, and I communicate with people regularly through email, through phone calls, so on and so forth. Facebook Messenger to me is like it's the silver bullet, because you can see when they've read the message.
Mm-hmm.
They've read my message.
Yeah, some of them have automated replies though.
I didn't even get an automated reply.
Okay, because the automated reply will still bump their profile picture down to where it looks like they've read your message, right? But I don't know. I'm not here to speak on NECA's behalf, but I'm sure.
And I'm not either. And that's the thing, is that I'm not worried one way or the other. It's one of those things where it'll get resolved when it gets resolved, and it's just because it came up. I wasn't going to bring it up, but because it came up, it's anyway. Anyway, Trevor One six shooter said, I don't have kids and I still don't have enough collection time.
Oh, hey.
Trevor gets deep though with like the photography and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Trevor's collection time is I don't know if he considers like the various YouTube videos that he does as collection time. I don't know if he considers photography time as collection time. But Trev, I know that you spend a lot of time with your toys, whether it's in a personal or professional capacity. Maybe there's a distinction there. I don't know, but regardless, great photographer, great pictures. Make sure you go check out both he's got Legion's Lounge, which is his Mythic Legion show, as well as Six Pack, I think, or something like that. I don't watch that one because I'm not a 1/6 scale collector, but I do check it out once in a while if there's a topic that I'm interested in. And then as a Mythic Legions collector, I mean, his photographs are second to none. They're phenomenal. He does the product pictures as well as the like promotional pictures.
Yeah, it's really good
and
stuff.
They're awesome. Santa came out, last week, 2 weeks ago, and I ordered it right away. And then I saw his pictures, and I was like, if anybody saw these pictures and didn't order it, they must hate Christmas. But whatever. That's
the pictures. You'll have to forgive me for not recalling the name right off the top of my head, but people were doing photography with Father Christmas on top of that moose.
Yeah.
And that was like chef's kiss, right?
Oh.
It looks so good, man.
Like, and I've got my moose, so I'm just waiting on Santa to do those pictures. And I've got the snow. The snow's outside, so I mean, I'm going to be all in.
Yeah, you're set. You're set.
It's going to look. I mean, my pictures are going to look like a 7-year-old did them, and then I'll say, "Oh, my daughter did this picture." It's not going to be anywhere near the level of the people. I've got friends that are amazing photographers, and sort of they look up to Trevor, and I'm like, "Hey, I took a picture." Like when a kid draws a picture and they're like, look at this, and you're like, it's fantastic.
When they come home with some macaroni art and you're just like, yeah, that's the best.
A handprint turkey, and you're like, phenomenal. That's such an original concept.
We could auction this art piece.
Call the gallery. They need to see this.
But yeah, 1/6 shooter. Yeah, but appreciate you stopping in, man. Really, really appreciate you checking out the stream.
Should we get into it? Should we jump right in?
Yeah, let's go, man. I think we're almost at 20 minutes and we haven't even addressed the topic at hand. So
as is always the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before we started, you were like, oh, Patty's not going to be with us. I don't know if we're going to be able to fill the time. Yeah. Surprise.
Yeah. Here we go. So figure lines that do exist that makes you scratch your head and kind of go, but why though? You know, but why though? Do you want to start?
I will start because I included one that's a toy line. It's not an action figure line. Okay. And this one I totally understand why it doesn't exist anymore. Entertech thought realistic guns would be a great idea until people started getting shot.
If I remember correctly, there was very unfortunately, I believe a police officer shot someone that had one of those.
If to be honest, multiple instances.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, looking at the product, I don't think I could blame that police officer for that. Yeah, who thought that would be a good idea? Those two handguns down there in the bottom right-hand corner that are modeled off of the Beretta 92 series right there, they look. I mean, if you pointed one at me, I'd probably shoot two. In all honesty, but
it's the very sad reality of sort of what sort of happened because of this line. But but in a weird way, like these don't exist because of this brand. Right. And any sort of toy gun now comes with that red sort of or like bright orange sort of safety thing on the barrel end.
Right. Well, some of them are just completely in neon colors now.
And rightfully so. I mean, that's the thing. When I I was pulling up all the different action figure lines, but this sort of came up, and I was like, man, when I was running around as a kid playing cops and robbers with neighbors and stuff like that, we had Nerf guns or neon colored super soakers, or sticks. Like, I don't know that there was a need for them to look this realistic. And I don't know why somebody was like, oh yeah, like water guns are neon colors. This will be fine. Because these are water guns. That's what's crazy about it. Like they're like motorized water pistols. And it's like, I just don't get why somebody was like, no, more realistic is the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple that like I don't know, this one in the second I'm sorry, the middle row, second one down.
That one there?
Yeah, that one right there. I mean, it looks like a pretty convincing Mac 10. I mean, at least
Oh,
from a
this, yeah,
distance.
this.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that one right there. It
Yeah.
looks pretty much like a Mac 10 to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I mean, apart from scale, these were problematic. Anyway, moving on. That's
the thing
I was just like,
well, yeah, it makes you question like what the hell happened, because first of all, someone had to get this idea, right? And then they had to prototype it, and then it went before a bunch of other people that said, yeah, let's do this, right? And then the retailers had to agree to carry it.
yes.
Right. So there's a whole lot of people down that chain that thumbs up this. And it's just that, it's, I don't know, it looks like a huge red flag to me. But
Trev even says, I don't think you can even get a black toy gun now. They're all orange or green. Yeah, I think for the most part, most people that have a black one for like a cosplay or whatever have like spray painted it to look more realistic at this point.
Now you'll please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think there's a little bit of Transformers lore that gets tied into this as well because of that Megatron handgun.
Yeah, so
right,
the original like G1 Megatron turned into like a pistol.
Right. Didn't that have to get pulled off of shelves because of this Intertech situation? Or did those two cross over at all? I can't remember.
I think that they did. I don't know the specifics. And I know, and it should be pointed out too that Intertech was not the only company. Like Intertech was making these and made multiple waves and sort of had these going for a while. There were other brands that were doing this. It wasn't as though like Intertech was the one and only company that had sort of decided, okay, we're going to go realistic now. The guns are going to be black and silver instead of orange and green.
Right.
But they're kind of in a way, I guess, the scapegoat for this because they were kind of the most prominent. They were the biggest brand, sort of. But I just don't think
anytime there's a real world loss of life because of a toy, it's gonna, the echoes of that it's gonna have a ripple effect throughout the industry, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we went a while without spring-loaded missiles, on account of what happened there at that Battlestar Galactica situation, and so anyway,
yeah. Very unfortunate, but like you said, I mean, how many people signed off on this thinking like what could possibly go wrong? And it like everything could possibly go wrong. And like I said, kids pick up sticks and play guns or whatever, right? Like I just don't think that this was ever needed.
This got really dark. Can we you want to go to something happy?
On the topic of firearms.
Yeah. And spring-loaded projectiles. Man, so I keep forgetting that this thing exists.
I never forget that this thing exists.
Who made this?
This was Toy Biz. Like this
was
like
Toy
Biz era, like when they were doing the Marvel, what are they, like 4-inch or 5-inch figures. They were looking to expand to like different stuff because like the figures are great, but kids want more. And they did a whole line of these like transforming characters. There's like a Juggernaut that transforms. I think there's a Spider-Man that transforms. I think there might be a Wolverine that transforms. The really unfortunate thing about the transformation for this, and that's the figure, the sort of mid transformation, and then the full transformation. The full transformation is problematic as well, But mid transformation, nobody was like, oh, and by the way, halfway through the process of getting his butt cannon, you get crotch cannon.
Right.
Like, again, how many people signed off on this thing?
Yeah. Look, you
From
can't tell
development
me.
to like shelf.
You can't tell me this wasn't intentional.
Uh,
You know, it's kind of how a phallus from time to time finds its way into a Disney picture.
yeah,
This is yeah. You can't tell me that this was, as far as engineering is concerned, this is the only way we could do it. No, no,
right, right.
I've
We
had
couldn't have
multiple.
his head sort of flip back, the projectile come that way.
We
It has to
couldn't.
go. It has to go
We
that
couldn't
way.
have his fists up like this. Like, come on, man. So Left Coast Graphics asks, or he says, kids have had toy guns for years. Can't American kids get gifted or buy guns legally with parents' consent? Well, the thing about American children is that when you every native-born citizen of the United States of America is issued a machine gun at birth, but you can't actually get access to it until you turn 18. So that's the thing right there.
I wish that wasn't so close to the truth.
It's no. So like you can I don't know about gifting children a firearm.
It's probably state by state, right? Because I know that different states have different laws.
I don't think you can give a firearm to anyone that's below the age of 18. You need to be 18 to buy a shotgun or a rifle, and then 21 to purchase a handgun.
I bet it gets pretty lax the further south you go.
It could be. And look, like I'm a native Texan, so I've never had any problems whatsoever acquiring firearms. So as far as the legality of gifting one, I don't know. Because I've been in a very I was raised in a very 2A friendly state. So,
and I mean, I completely understand what Left Coast Graphics is sort of getting at and sort of suggesting. But as a Canadian, I mean, I think people have misconceptions about gun laws in Canada versus the U.S. and so on and so forth. Ultimately, I think it's just it comes down to users. It comes down to who's buying them for what purpose, and firearms have their place, right? Like that has to be said, and there has to be open discussion about it. And misuse of firearms is a massive problem all over the world, not just in the U.S. It happens in Canada, and misuse is misuse wherever it is ultimately, right? So I think that's the problem. But we're not an NRA podcast or a gun lobby podcast, so we will kind of just that's not a conversation that I'm. I don't even know enough about the topic.
Right. Yeah. So
to feel comfortable with that, discussing that. But
so 1-6 shooter says, yeah, you can give it to them, but they can't legally own it. Right. So there's like, my granddad gave me a very, very old revolver when I was like, 12 years old. He was like, hey, you should be the next one to have this. Now, obviously, because I'm 12, it went in my dad's safe. Right.
Yeah.
And then when I came of age, and now I'm in possession of it. So yeah, just that. I think that's how you would go about doing it. Anyway, toys, right?
Kids can own this one.
Yeah, kids can, if the parents allow them.
Well, I was gonna say for a very short time until there were enough angry moms that demanded these be pulled from shelves, and they were pulled from shelves. These didn't last very long, and so these are not that easy to come by anymore. If you want more of a history on this one, Jay from Geek Dad Life actually did a really great video where he got one of these just to do like a deep dive video on it.
Right.
And I think he found out that, like, honestly, the engineers were kind of hopeful that people wouldn't notice and get to the end, but they were like, oh, we knew, but once the engineering was done, it was kind of too late. They just wanted to get it to market, and anyway.
Yeah, it's that was definitely a head scratcher.
Trev says lots of things could be settled with sticks and snowballs. Yeah, absolutely, and they were for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. So I mean, I don't know, but like I said, that's how most Canadians solve their problems, is sticks and snowballs for the most part.
Yeah, syrup fights.
No, the winner gets syrup.
Yeah, maple syrup in the eye. That'll change your attitude.
Trev said this looks more like dental tool than a gun. This looks like an adult toy. the adult collectible, however you want to sort of. But anyway, this is one of Patty's submissions, and I would love to have heard what Patty had sort of prepared to talk about in terms of this.
Okay, so
Because like I said, this line wasn't all bad. I mean, if you go and sort of look up the other figures, this was the one out of many that didn't make sense. I mean, the line's kind of goofy and gimmicky,
right.
but this was obviously very problematic.
It's just funny to look at, man.
It is, absolutely. This is the one that I came across when I was just looking for toy lines that, like, I'd never heard of this before, and I can understand why. So this came out sort of as like Galoob's response to She-Ra. It's sort of like an action doll line, very much, I would say, geared towards girls. It is Golden Girl and the Guardians of the Gemstones.
I can first of all, today years old when I found out that this existed.
Yeah.
But I can see the hair play that they were going for right there. And honestly, in the DMs from a couple of days ago when you were telling me what your submissions are, and I was like, the NECA Golden Girls, like
Yeah.
who just that's what I was thinking, and I was like, okay.
And the message broke into two lines too. So it said
Right.
Golden Girl, and then the second line said the Guardians of the Gemstones. And I was like, no, it has to be one, because it. But just the way that message went through, when I sent it, it was the same thing. I was like, that's gonna look like two different toy lines. But it's,
dude, honestly, have you looked into the pricing on these?
no, are they wild?
I don't know. I just realized that they exist roughly 90 seconds ago. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm kind of digging it, man.
I mean, it's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I get what they're going for, right? Like there was the good guys and the bad guys, the 6 here plus the one, it's like 6 good guys. They had Prince Chroma, which is sort of the one male figure, down in the bottom left there. And then this is sort of the one male. Ogra is the male bad guy. And he just looks like, I don't know. They just look generic. They look pretty cheap, to be honest, when you actually like look at the figures kind of outside of the packaging. The packaging I just thought was way more fun than the figures themselves, which is why I've got all the sort of pink plastered all over but this is sort of the one line that I came across that I'd never heard of either when I was doing it, when I was sort of looking into these toy lines. But then the deeper you go, like the deeper dive you do on like toy lines from the 80s and 90s that like are just garbage, there's some absolute garbage. And there's probably, I should have checked this. I really should have checked this. There's probably a Facebook collectors group for Golden Girls and the Guardians of the Gemstones. There's probably somebody out there who is a massive fan of this line and is like, I can't believe they only made 2 waves. I think there's even like a play set. So there
really?
Yeah, there was.
Just looking at I'm guessing this is the main character here. This golden female warrior here, but
yeah, that's Golden Girl.
But I mean, just looking at her shield, you can see the She-Ra influence there, right?
100%. And I mean, she's gold and white and blonde hair. Like it was. This is clearly, and Galoob. Somebody's gonna correct me, but like when I think of Galoob, I think of like, oh, what did Mattel just do? Yeah, bang out something that's really close to that. Like, oh, what did Kenner just do? Yeah, bang out something that's really close to that, without copyright infringement.
That's
and
fair.
I think that was their MO, was like put out something that's close enough that, and price it at $3. Well, not in the 80s. Price it at $1 less. And
make it $4 instead of $5, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we'll sell a ton of them. And they probably did, which is why I say there's probably a Facebook collectors group for this line.
Well, you said there was a second wave, right?
Yeah, there's more figures than this. Like this isn't like I have the sort of boxes for 7 of them, but there's like a dozen or more of the dolls themselves. And then there was, now I didn't go too deep because I was like, I could spend days getting into this,
right?
And I don't. And as we've talked about all the other stuff that we got to do for like kids and stuff like that. I just didn't have the patience or the time. So I didn't go too deep, and I just sort of pulled, some pictures that were sort of the most obvious and sort of the quick ones to sort of get into, just
Sure.
to sort of get a glimpse. Like I said, I spent hours looking for lines, looking for pictures, and I could have spent days, and I could have, but I shouldn't, and that's effectively why I don't have more pictures and more slides, because it's you could have done a show for hours and hours and hours talking about like the ones that you'd never heard of, and that's like, that's not including all the ones that we have heard of. So moving on, we'll get into the movie lines, where I think for most of these, it's like R-rated movies, or like weird movies that like no one saw, or but like we were sort of saying, very toyetic. There's a quality to pretty much all of these where I can understand why somebody was like, hey, why don't we make toys of this? Like, kids love robots and dirt bikes. Let's put out some T1000 killer robots. For wave 4, whatever wave it was, I don't know. Let's put out white hot T1000 with color change.
So all right. So this Terminator 2 came out in 1991, if I'm not mistaken. That puts young Jeremy at the age of 9, right?
I think I was 9 as well.
So my dad was not taking me to the theater to see this movie, right? But I got the figures for it for some reason. And I really liked them. I just didn't know what to do with them, because kids, you're playing with your stuff and you're making your own fan fiction. And, like when I was playing with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff, I knew enough about the universe that they inhabited, right? In order to make my own play scenarios. But then I got these and I was like, what the hell is this? But I still liked them. So I had, from right to left, I had that John Connor with the dirt bike. I had that halfway changed T1000. I had the purple shirt T800. And then to the left there, I did have the motorcycle cop version of the T1000. And I had something else too. It was like this thing where like you had the T800 endoskeleton, and you would put it in this thing, and you would like injection mold this crap into it.
I remember that.
It looked like a man, and then you'd peel it off of him like Arnie, cutting his arm off.
It was almost like Play-Doh, but it wasn't, right?
Yeah. It was like Play-Doh, but it didn't have this. It didn't have the same consistency. But it was similar to that. And okay, I thought it was cool, but I had no idea what to do with it. So, But you have a rated R movie, and I don't know. I think there was a possibility to turn that movie into a PG-13, right? But they went for the R anyway. And you have a toy line that's directly marketed to kids that most likely aren't being taken to the theater to see the movie. So I don't know if this was like they needed to do something with the license to keep it for a while, or something like that. I'm not sure why these got made for children, but
I mean, I think for some of them, if not all of them, it kind of comes down to somebody who worked. So this is, the Terminator ones are Kenner, but there's other brands, right? I can just imagine somebody at Kenner who was watching Terminator thought, there's a toy line here, like I said, kids love robots, kids love liquid metal, kids love half exposed robot faces where the skin's been peeled off because grenades have blown up in their faces.
Yeah,
obviously.
And they're like, I'm telling you, if there was a line that had a kid in it, the kid was always an anchor character for me.
True.
Right? Because I would make the kid me when I was playing. And I would do the same thing with Last Action Hero.
I was going to say I didn't include that one, but Last Action Hero is another good example. Not R-rated. It was more geared towards kind of 10 to 15-year-old boys. But again, young boy character where like there's somebody that we could relate to. And so like we felt like, wow, wouldn't this be a cool adventure of like being part of an action movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that one is an IP that, like, we were allowed to see that movie, kind of thing. Terminator 2, I don't think I saw until I was probably 15 or 16 years old.
So I did wind up seeing it relatively young, right?
Yeah.
My mom would go because my dad, I think, watched it in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my mom had this like tradition back then. She went and had like her Bunko Fridays,
Mm-hmm.
and she would always be gone till like 11 at night, right? And so my dad, we had this agreement, he would go to Blockbuster, you bring something back. He's like, look, you didn't see this here, right? And I'm like, nope, I didn't even see
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly.
I don't know what you're even talking. I've never seen that movie to begin with, much less here,
Yeah.
And so I wound up seeing Terminator 2 when it got released on VHS, and it was
Right.
just like, so yeah.
I think I saw it when like released on video, but I think it was years after. I think it was, and by the time I was going with my dad to the video store, I was a little bit older, and he just let me pick whatever. He didn't care. I've talked before about like watching Tour of Duty as like I think I worked it out that I was like somewhere between like 8 and 10 watching Tour of Duty, and specifically remembering one of the episodes where the guy has to kick heroin, and I was like, this is interesting. Like, I don't know anything about this, but like I guess that's the way it was. And it's a historical document, right? So it's relevant to my education as a child.
My dad and I's VHS Fridays. This is where I saw Terminator 2. This is where I saw Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
And
at Christmas time, I presume.
No, I don't. I think the Die Hard Christmas thing is a very like recent, development. But
I think it's a joke. It's not a Christmas movie. It's an action movie that happens to take place at Christmas.
Right. Yeah.
It's a great movie in July. You don't have to wait for Christmas time to watch that movie. That's where it's different. You don't watch Elf in July. It's not relevant in July.
I'm sorry I cut you off.
Girls. Yeah. Is that top left one Betty White? I missed that comment, but that's a great comment. And he also said, I love that the thigh on the T1000 is saying, this rules.
This rules.
When he's in pieces on the ground. Yeah. He said, this rules.
Look, I got to be honest. When you put Golden Girls in the chat, I was like, okay, he has to be talking about the newer NECA ones that are out there. Or I think
that
Mego,
I'm all about. I think
Mego is doing them too. What's up?
No, I think the NECA Golden Girls is a stroke of genius because they're such a cultural icon.
Yeah, I was like, so Adam has to be protesting these NECA figures for some reason.
No, not at all. I actually bought the Bob Ross figure for my my brother-in-law who's an artist.
Nice.
For Christmas a couple of years ago, I think. I found it. I was on vacation and I found it in a Target when I was down south of the border, and I was like, I know who would want to have this. So I bought that, and I think those are great. I think those sort of like one-off, where they're not going to be a toy line, but nobody's ever made a toy of it. I love when brands like NECA do stuff like that, or Super 7 or whoever. Like I don't even really care who does it. They're just fun to have, that kind of stuff. Moving along with the movie lines, Starship Troopers again.
So this is what my previous statement about Terminator 2, which that movie could still work as a PG-13.
Yeah,
there was no way on earth Starship Troopers could ever get downgraded to a PG-13. I mean, just
I could see it, but it would be a very, very different movie.
Well, the movie would need to exist, right?
It's
got the over the top, gore.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same director that did RoboCop, which, in my opinion, is a masterpiece.
Which also has a toy line.
Which also has a toy line. But it's what was his name? It escapes me right now. But the gore and the way that the gore is presented is a part of the movie itself. It's so there was no way that anybody's, like any kids below the age of 14, 15 should have been anywhere near the theater for this. I mean, the nudity that was in the film, the over-the-top violence and stuff, but for some reason, here they are, and they had a toy line for it, and one that is not it's not very friendly on your wallet to try to put that collection together now.
Now, is that down to scarcity? Is that down to the fact that like this line probably wasn't produced in the same numbers that
Oh,
a lot of the other stuff would have been?
there's no way you're going to be making as many of these as you are Batman Forever
Yeah,
figures.
yeah.
There's no way. So it had to come down to the scarcity of it.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, I mean, who was buying this,
Mhm.
I
Well, yeah,
I
yeah.
have
There was
no
probably a lot
idea.
of this thrown into a fire after a couple years of sitting on a shelf.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're cool. I think Galoob did these, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right. And again, Galoob, like
Here
no
we
one
go.
else is doing it. Let's get in there.
Nobody got the license to make children's toys for a hard R.
Yeah,
Starship
exactly.
Troopers, suckers.
Aaron from AI Collectible says the bugs look great, and that's absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, the when we were talking about the Terminator stuff, right? Kids love robots, kids love dirt bikes, kids love bugs, kids love Army.
Now
Um,
I got to tell you, this figure
it's not. Yeah, it's not. That
that's
picture
got to
popped
be
up.
Aliens. That's got to be Aliens, right? That's got to be a Space
Um,
Marine from Aliens.
yeah, Aaron saying is that a McFarlane Reese posed with that bug, and I absolutely think it is. It's just that picture looked good to sort of give a bit of scale. That
Okay,
was the
got
only
it.
one I could find with like an action figure next to it. So
Okay.
those bugs are a decent size, and would look great as army builders. I apologize. That's not strictly speaking within the parameters of what we were sort of looking at. So ignore that figure is from another line, but
Hmm.
for scale, I think it works. I love the fact that like, and maybe I missed it. I don't remember like a neon green suited character through
Oh,
the course, course of
The
that
Riddler
movie.
down there.
Yeah.
Who is this?
Again, like
What
where
does
they
it
kind of
say?
just take a little
Ace.
bit artistic license and they're like, well, I mean, we'll do glow. Actually, with Terminator, I didn't pull it up, but there was like glow in the dark, color change, heat activated. Like they had every gimmick going,
Right.
and I think that's such an indicator of like early '90s toy line of like, okay, well, we did these figures, but we only got one figure out of this mold. What are we going to do to get 3 or 4 more runs so that we can get sort of value for money out of this mold? And you see all the time, like the neon figures with just a head swap, and then they're like, well, this is this character. It's an
Yeah.
extension of like, oh, this is what would have happened if there was a cartoon to go with this R-rated movie.
I used
Like,
to I loved 90s gimmicky toys. I really
mhm,
do. There's another company that's been doing them fairly recently, which was Alternations. Are you
mhm.
familiar with that line?
I've heard of them. I'm not very steeped in their.
You can so the Kickstarter for Wave 1 was successful. You can get those figures on Amazon right now for like
Okay.
20 $25. But
Mhm.
anyway, if you look at these and you're not automatically reminded of 90s gimmick toys, then I don't know what's going to do it for you. They're fantastic. I got the entire Wave 1. Unfortunately, the Kickstarter for Wave 2 did not go so great, but hopefully they're able to have a little tactical retreat, pull themselves together a little bit and get Wave 2 out there because they're great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, sometimes it's as simple as like getting wave one in people's hands, and then wave two is much more appealing and sort of, building some success on the back of the previous wave. But we'll see. Sorry, AI Aaron said neon was big in the '90s. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there was any toy lines that weren't doing at least a couple neon figures.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Um,
Swamp Thing even had one. Well, it was a glow in the dark figure. Sorry.
Yeah, well, but they
Um,
even went like with Swamp Thing. I always think of like really earth tony, and even with like the main Swamp Thing figures, they were pretty vibrantly colored.
right. There was a color change one though.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a color change one.
What's going on, Ostradamus Toys? Trevor said, I think back then when kids still shopped in a store for toys, this might have looked cool on the shelf, regardless if they had seen the movie. And I think that's what they were trying to get, right? Like a lot of these lines, not all of them, and we'll get to one that fits into that not all of them category.
Mhm.
But most of them, like I said, they're appealing to sort of genres and categories that kids liked: military, bugs, robots, aliens.
Yeah.
Now, I specifically picked this alien because this is from the original movie. This predates the line of action figures that is oddly similar to the Starship Troopers. And now I'm wondering what the date is for Galoob to put out Starship Troopers when Kenner put out Aliens.
So Alien was
Alien, yeah.
Alien was 1977.
Yes.
When did these figures come out?
I think it was 78 or early 79. So
and
it was
and Kenner put them out?
I believe this one. Oh, now I don't know. Now I can't remember. I just assumed it was because they did Aliens, which is only a couple years later. But
Right.
they only did one figure, and I'm gonna find it. There's a picture of like a kid holding this and playing with it that is just so absurdly funny because it's so ironic. Now I gotta find it because I didn't include it because I just wanted to sort of keep the I wanted to sort of keep the slide relatively clean, which I absolutely didn't do with that Golden Girl slide. But anyway, that was for a completely different reason. But it's just like this kid is just here it is. Yeah, bear with me for a second here.
That's
but
okay.
yeah, this is like it came out. It's a one-off. It's like there's no action figures to go with it. It's just an alien, and it's not like kids love aliens, but I think of like Toy Story Alien.
Right.
I don't think of like xenomorphs and like this kind of alien. We're talking about a totally different thing.
I really like
talking about
the aliens from the Independence Day toy line. Those were great.
But again, I mean, like there's another, I mean, that one was probably rated PG or something like that. So I can understand why they would do a toy line for that.
Independence Day was PG-13, I think.
And so with Will Smith, but look at how excited this kid is to be playing with this toy.
Like, it's big.
Yeah, it's 18-inch. Like it's a
wow.
big. Yeah, it was a big, and these are I believe these are really expensive to get.
Big chat.
Because these are you always find them broken and stuff like that because this is going back to the 70s, right? So this is a figure that had to have that kid play with it for a few years and then pass it on to his younger sibling, and then it also kind of predates when people were collecting things with sort of the idea that these would be valuable at some point. I think that's why a lot of that 90s stuff is relatively easy to find and relatively inexpensive to find, is because that was sort of coincided with people buying comic books and sports cards as like an investment purchase.
Sure.
So there's like, Tupperware tubs of these in people's storage containers that all across the world.
Yeah.
But this, 18 inches. They only did one figure. This kid loved it. Mechanical operating jaw. So the appendage, like mouth comes out. Like it's pretty accurate to the movie.
Well,
which makes all the more reason that it shouldn't have ever been a toy line.
Yeah, right. If it's accurate to the alien from the movie, why would you ever put this in a child's hands? But what I do like is the earlier versions. That if you want to, will you pull that image up again?
Oh, that quick? Last one?
Yeah, the very excited child with that killer alien in his hand.
Give me a sec here.
But what I liked about the way that the production images from the older depictions of the xenomorph alien, where you could actually see the portion of the human skull in the very top of the head, and then I don't know if that wasn't popular and they got away from it and they just started making the top pod on its head not translucent anymore. But I like the way that portion of the human skull looks right up front. I think it's cool.
In clearer pictures, it was quite transparent. Like it's quite. You can definitely see the skull in there. You can definitely see that sort of Geiger-esque kind of look.
Oh, that nightmare fuel that Geiger made as what do you call it? When you're drawing images for a project coming up, concept art. I don't know why I couldn't think of the term concept art. Jesus. But you know what I did think of though, while I was trying to remember what concept art was? I remembered the director of RoboCop and
And
Starship
because you
Troopers.
have it, what is it?
It was Neil Blomkamp.
That's not the original one.
No, who?
Neil Blomkamp is the South African director that I think he might have done.
He did RoboCop.
He did the remake.
No,
he's still working now.
I think he did the original.
He did. He's the guy that did Chappie and was it Section 8 or Section 9 or whatever it's called?
Who am I?
He's like a recent director.
No. Okay. You know what? We're gonna figure out who. I'm actually gonna look it up.
All right, you look it up. I'm gonna jump into the comments here.
Okay.
Ostradamus Toy says Swamp Thing was an awesome toy line.
Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah.
That's who I was thinking of. Jesus, how did I get those two mixed up? Anyway, whatever.
And he was, I mean, he's well known for his like over the top graphic, like borderline campy violence and language and like nudity for the sake of it being an 80s movie. Like completely unnecessary, but get it in there because that's what people sort of wanted at the time.
Yeah, no reason whatsoever.
When you watch his movies through the sort of the lens of the fact that he was doing all that on purpose, you really appreciate the genius that he is, because like there was a lot of bad directors that were doing it not trying to sort of do it, if that makes sense. Yeah. But he was clearly very aware of what he was doing. Like when RoboCop gets shot up, that scene, like where they put like hundreds of rounds into that body, and you're just like, this is maybe excessive. I don't know.
I mean, portions of that dummy were just coming to pieces. I also think it's interesting the way that he incorporated exposition in the film through the form of state-sponsored propaganda. You know, it was moving the story along, and I thought that was very interesting, both in because I remember seeing Starship Troopers for the first time, and then you would have those not those commercials, but you know, would you like to learn more? You know, like even Little Jimmy's doing their part, you know, and they're stomping these bugs, and I was like, this is straight from RoboCop, isn't it? You know, and then when I found out that the director was the same guy, I was like, oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
Did he do Total Recall as well?
I don't know, but I completely got him mixed up for a whole other person for some reason. So I'm not the authority to speak to on that subject right now. So
today on the Ill-Informed Movie Podcast,
on today's episode of Jeremy Gets It Wrong. Yeah.
Ostradamus said Aliens and Predator was like that for Kenner. Movies for adults, toys made for kids. He also said, I thought the only figure for the original was the 12-inch Big Chap. It was actually 18-inch, which is this one here, I believe. And like, yeah, they did one. That's the other thing is like somebody was like, this will make a great doll. Like, and we'll do one, and there won't be any context, and it'll just be this nightmare fuel of a doll. And this kid, the advertisement is just so great. That kid's like, wow, its jaw comes out. Probably came with slobber on it.
It looks like they had taken they you know, I don't know what the 1977 version of photoshopping was, but it's like if they took like the tiger from Big Jim out of this kid's hand and then put the xenomorph in there, you know, like
it would be fun to do like a deep dive on a yearly basis of like, okay, this came out at this time, what else was out? Like I feel like this would have been really odd looking on the shelf.
We ought to look, that would be interesting to look at. Like, let's go back to Starship Troopers. I want to say it was like 97.
Yeah.
96, 97, maybe 98, 99. But what else was on the shelf at the same time that those were on the pegs as well? That would be interesting.
If I had infinitely more time, that's probably something that I would end up doing. Whether I did a video or not, I would probably end up doing that. But
it'd just be fun.
It would be so much fun.
Okay, are you ready to move on to the next one?
I'm just going to do a couple more comments, and then we'll move on. Aaron said, I don't think kids under the age of 30 shop for toys anymore. That's not true. My kids shop for toys because I make them. Lefko says it was R-rated. It was, I mean, all these movies, I think all of these were R-rated. Sorry if I don't get to all the comments. Some of them. Oh, Trevor says there was going to be a Saturday morning cartoon based on Alien. I wish I could see the pitch for that. Aaron said it was a different era. I remember having sleepovers before I was 10, and my friends and I would rent horror movies like Rawhead Rex, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Alien. Absolutely. I saw Aliens, the second one, at my friend's house, and I think I probably would have been about 10 years old. So I could be totally wrong because I don't know the years, but probably somewhere around there. And I remember being absolutely terrified of that movie. And we also thought Vasquez, because we live in Kelowna, BC, which is like at that time like super white. We thought Vasquez was called Fast Cat, and we just couldn't understand the pronunciation. He looks like the kid is trying to bite him. Maybe he is. Maybe that kid's a biter. Who knows? I don't know. Let me bring back up the slideshow, which always takes longer than it should because I'm not coordinated enough to get it done quicker. There we are. Moving on to movies that had toy lines that this one I really don't get.
Was this a Patty pick?
R-rated, but I don't think kids wanted these figures.
Was this a you pick or was this a Patty pick?
This was a Patty pick.
Okay, because I totally get why these exist.
Continue.
I mean, look, the movie was big. I mean, you couldn't get away from the advertising. For the movie, it wasn't rated R, and it's just it goes back to that rule. If it was on the silver screen in the late 80s, early 90s, it was getting a movie or it was getting a toy line,
Yep, absolutely. And I bet, I bet that there's a bunch of people that have every one of these figures, both loose and mint on card. Like people just absolutely big SNL fans and stuff like that. Like I could see this.
I mean, look at that Dan Aykroyd head sculpt they got with him with his face.
It's not bad.
It's not bad, man. It's not bad.
It works. Like that's, but these clearly I could see more even in the era that these were like on peg. I could see adults buying these. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Yeah.
I don't know that kids would have been like, "Can I get that Conehead figure in the Earth outfit?" Like what?
Look, I kind of dig these, man. I kind of dig them.
You would. These are right up your. These are right in your wheelhouse. Like movie lines for like kind of movies that and I didn't include everything, right? Like Waterworld that comes up often, right? Terrible movie that completely got panned and people hated it, but the toys are decent, and they're kind of fun, and they're neon colors.
I think hating on Waterworld just became the popular thing to do. It's
I love Waterworld.
Like what Waterworld was the original template for what I call the Nickelback effect, right? Mm-hmm. Which is like you don't know enough about Nickelback's actual catalog of music to make an informed decision as to whether or not they're bad.
To be fair,
you just saw enough memes, right? So
to be fair, Nickelback is not very good. Also, Chad Kroeger is a jerk. But anyway,
well, tell that to the mountain of awards that their music have earned them. So
and the millions and millions of records that they've sold. If you like it, it's like I said, collect how you want, listen to music how you want. If you like it, great. There's no such thing as guilty pleasures. There is just guilty people with pleasures.
But yeah, definitely, Waterworld is the movie version of. I'm sorry, Waterworld is to movies what Nickelback 100%. Is to the music industry.
100%. Ostromandius says, my son recently told me he was going to be a toy collector, and I cried for 2 reasons. 1, I'm proud. 2, my wallet hurts.
Larry Reed. Hey, all. Hey, what's up, Larry?
David said, just popped on. Not sure if you guys mentioned Rambo. I didn't, but that had a cartoon, so one I can understand.
The toy line was actually for Rambo: The Force for Freedom.
The cartoon.
Yeah, the toy line was based off the cartoon, not the film itself.
They were great toys.
Yeah.
I also saw those movies and probably shouldn't have at the age that I saw them.
Well, I have the NECA ones now. I have all those 3 of the NECA Rambos.
Hot Toys is doing one too, coming out soon.
Well, I think somebody else. Who was it? Haya Toys.
Oh,
I
that's
think.
what it is. Not Hot Toys. Haya. Haya's doing
Yeah.
a scale. Yeah.
So if
The
we can
First
get
Blood
like
Rambo.
Colonel Troutman and stuff in there,
Mhm.
and really fill it out, that'd be great. Anyway, sorry.
And Aaron, we actually were talking about this before we
That's
went live. The Robin Hood Prince of Thieves
yeah.
used the Ewok Village at Sherwood Forest and upgraded it. So if you need an Ewok Village, don't be a weirdo that will not allow the Prince of Thieves Sherwood Forest playset to be your Ewok Village, because you'll save yourself a boatload of money. A
It's an
small boat,
upgraded
mind
version.
you.
The trees have foliage
Mhm.
in the Prince of Thieves version. Now
They
I
are
get it
up.
if you're a box guy or gal, or just if you're a
Yes.
box
Yep.
collector,
Yep.
right? You're not going to have your Robin Hood Prince of Thieves box up with the rest of your Star Wars boxes, right? Because it's got the same thing inside, right?
Well, it's the contents are the
You know,
same.
the contents are the same. It's actually an upgrade, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, don't be that guy. Moving away from movie lines, this was yours.
Yeah.
This was this was one that I'd never heard of, and I'm not a wrestling guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a WWE guy. I was not a WWF guy. Trying to explain that to my kid now who likes wrestling, I was like, it used to be called WWF. She's like, that's stuffed animals, and I'm like, well, it wasn't always.
Yeah. Wait, because of what, the World Wildlife Foundation?
Yeah.
I guess okay.
But who
So,
cares?
but I was a WWF kid.
Uh-huh.
I do remember my earliest memory of wrestling, I think, was pay-per-view WrestleMania 3, 1987. I was 5 years old. The
Nice.
Intercontinental bout between Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Macho Man Randy Savage. It's a match that'll always be burned in my brain. So
Uh-huh.
so I was there from the original LJN dog toy. Large. I have
The rubber ones.
yeah, the rubber ones. I have an
Mhm.
entire shelf full, or two shelves full of them. Then later on down the line to the Hasbro. I'm sorry, no, the Mattel WWF, which were the hard plastic, much smaller scale, but then they had an action gimmick,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Like Jake the Snake Roberts had his Python punch, and you would pull his arm back, and it was spring loaded and go and all that. So I've been collecting WWF figures for a long time. So when this happened,
AI likes them.
it's so I guess they were trying to do some kind of I don't know, maybe try to get a little bit of that GI Joe money
You know what I
coming
think?
their
When I
way.
saw these, when we were going through toy lines that we were like,
Yeah.
why? I had the exact same reaction to these as I did to like the Starship Troopers.
Right.
I thought to myself that Jack's Pacific was like, well, Galoop's got Starship Troopers. We need to get an action figure with guns. We have the WWF license. Let's do it.
Yeah, and the fact that it made it past the first wave was
So we
crazy.
should point out, like that China figure.
And wave is a funny word because they wound up going aquatic, right?
Wave 2 went underseas.
So yeah, I guess that's the biggest, or that's where my brain takes me as to when they were conceptualizing this. They were like, hey, GI Joe, we need to try to get some of that GI Joe money. What are we going to do? Okay, let's put an automatic rifle and body armor with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Because why not?
Because why not? And let's see how that works out. And I guess it was successful enough to warrant a second wave. You can see China there. Man. Yeah, and actually these are, if you are a collector or if you're interested into getting into these, you can still pick these up carded for not a whole lot of money. There's not a huge demand for these.
Really?
Yeah, in the current day, not that I know of anyway.
I bet Wave 2 is a little pricier.
Maybe. Larry Reed says he was there at the famous Montreal screw job.
For the screw job, yeah. Larry's from Montreal. I didn't pull that one up because I thought this comment that Aaron made. I'm looking them up on eBay right now.
Right. So did you know that these exist before I put the words WWF Stomp in the chat?
Did I or did the chat know?
No,
I want to know if the chat knew. Clearly, Aaron didn't, because now he's gonna go and buy them all right now. And when he gets them, he'll do an unboxing, and I'll make sure to tag you in it so that you know that he's got
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Wave 2, I think, is Wave 2 for me is like really where this really gets interesting, because Wave 2, they go underwater siege, right?
Yeah.
Is that a reaction to Wave 1 not being popular, or is that a reaction to Wave 1 being so popular that they're like, well, we're just printing money now. Let's do Wave 2 and let's put them in scuba gear.
I don't know, man. I don't. Yeah, look, 15 to 25 each, and I'm willing to bet that those are carded examples.
I don't see why they wouldn't be. I don't know how high the demand is for these until now, because
we'll keep it to ourselves for now.
The 8 people watching are all going to go out and snatch them up. So that's
I hate to
get ahead of the curve. Go and get your WWF Stomp figures now before the demand skyrockets as a result of this video.
Yeah. We altered the. I'm sorry. We altered the market specifically for WWF Stomp figures. Pretty much what Ryan Farnham has done to the Bratz car. Now, have you noticed that they're getting harder to get? And the prices of them are going up.
I haven't, because I haven't been looking.
Okay, so
I don't need one or want one.
So nobody does. Nobody does.
So this is another one of Patty's picks, and this one I was like, how dare you, Patty? And this is where we had to include the caveat and sort of the asterisk that says, you might not agree with our picks. I don't agree with this pick.
I don't agree with this either.
Awesome. Food Fighters was a line that I absolutely loved, and to me this sort of falls in line with Barnyard Commandos or Army Ants, or insert another brand that I might not have heard of, because they're just so much fun. And again, sort of cashing in on that sort of G.I. Joe vibe. These had packaging that included a file card on the back. Like these were just fun, and they came with a backpack and a gun and their pizza and French fries. Like, what's not to love?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I think with Patty, when he put his picks in, I believe he was intoxicated. I don't think that this was a sober mind making these decisions right here, because I cannot agree with you anymore, Adam. Yeah, I wish he was here, but I could not agree with you anymore, Adam. Food Fighters was fantastic. I don't have any problems with this line. I really, really like them. And these are ones, though, I think the last time I looked at these on eBay, because I was like, hey, I've finished Dick Tracy minus the blank. I finished The Shadow. I finished Dungeons and Dragons. I finished Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Where am I going next? And my mind went.
Dragonheart's done too, right?
Dragonheart is done. Yeah. So my mind went here, and then I went to eBay, and I was like, my mind needs to leave here.
Well, I just changed my mind.
Yeah, just changed my mind. Batman Forever it is. Here we go. Yeah, these are super inventive, super colorful. You can now. I've said before that once TMNT became the icon that it was, and then everybody was just, hey, we can make anything we want talk now. Yeah. And then also that Playmates pose, that squatty pose that they put the TMNT figures in.
Yep.
Echoed throughout the industry, right? You see it with Barnyard Commandos. I'm sorry, not Barnyard Commandos, but you see it with Cowboys of Moo Mesa, right? And then you see it with, the Dick Tracy figure line as well had those squatty poses, and with those grimacing mouths, like what you see in here, like with that chocolate chip cookie. I can't remember what that character's name is, but it definitely has that Wave 1 TMNT going on.
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of that going around. You're absolutely right. And and this was, I think this was sort of the beginning of and like when people, this is another thing that I just thought of. This is not something that I've sort of been waiting to say. It's something that I've just thought of. So don't get offended when I say this. when people get really nostalgic about, remember when we could go into Toys R Us and go to the GI Joe aisle and it was packed full of stuff? I do. But do you also remember that a couple years later it turned into aisles with this and Army Ants and Barnyard Commandos and so on and so forth, because it exploded and everything that could be a toy became a toy. People kind of have this weird false memory that GI Joe existed in the way that it did in the early 80s forever, and that's not the case.
No,
it was a slow process of change. It wasn't like in 1984 it was all GI Joe and that existed until now, and now they're complaining. There's that whole middle period where everything changed.
I remember in the waning years where the GI Joe section was actually relatively small. The amount of vehicles that they had there were kind of few and far between. And then as you're flipping through the Joes to find something, you're coming across the Street Fighter Joes as well.
Yeah.
You know, and on all that stuff. So it was, yeah, I think I have that core memory of an entire aisle of nothing but GI Joe, but I can't trust it because I think that it's been manipulated a little bit by the way that people talk about it from back then. So, man, love to have a time machine, man. Love to have a time machine.
I love. So there was in our local little Kelowna mall, there was a toy store called Toys and Wheels. We didn't even have a KB Toys. We had Toys and Wheels, and the aisles, like it was a small store, but it was packed. I'm almost positive, and I was smaller too, which makes me think that I'm probably remembering this correctly. I was, a 7-year-old kid to 12-year-old kid in these aisles, and I could barely make it down the aisles. It was definitely not like wheelchair accessible, and it was just packed full of stuff. So like the idea of the toy store that sort of people have in their mind never really existed in the way that they think that it did. But anyway, that's beside the point. This comment made me laugh. Aaron said, "Carded, this puts a whole new meaning to Scuba Steve." They did do that Steve Austin in Wave 2. So
that Scuba Steve Austin. Can I get a hell yeah?
Trev said, "Have you seen 9 to 5 Warriors?" I have, and they actually look like a lot of fun. So that to me is the evolution of Food Fighters for us now that we're like, middle-aged men. This is basically, if you haven't seen it, 9 to 5 Warriors is like Food Fighters, but like office stuff, like staplers and like notepads and pencils and stuff like that. And it's great. They look fun. Larry mentioned Street Sharks also. Yes, I was going to mention Street Sharks as well, in that sort of stocky, stout little post. I think their elbows were like 90-degree bends right out of the package with no articulation. Yeah, Patty, next time you're on, I think we're going to have to grill you on this one, because this line is great.
I think there needs to be actually like some type of intervention for Patty. If you know Patty and you care about him, let's all get together.
Let's reach out to Patty and ask him if everything's okay.
Right. Let's bring him in, and we'll have a circle of affirmation around him. We'll just say very, very affirming words, and really try to get to what the core of this problem is, because obviously he's a troubled man.
Where did the lunch lady touch you? Maybe he just hates all food. I don't know. Maybe that's the real question. Maybe he has maybe there's a deep-seated trauma that he just.
Was any of these or were any of these food items like too inherently American? Like there was no like patin here or anything for him to maybe identify with, or
No, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's when he sent me his list. I just couldn't. He sent me his list this afternoon. To be fair, I didn't have a whole lot of time to react. But.
What's a very distinctly Canadian thing to eat?
I think. Okay, so it's weird because I've looked into this before, and poutine is probably the one thing that people don't really eat anywhere else, unless like, oh, this is a Canadian food,
right?
A lot of foods were actually invented in Canada that are eaten all over the place, but because of our proximity to the U.S., people just don't know that we came up with them.
Got it.
Like California rolls.
Oh, that's interesting.
They're from Vancouver. So anyway.
That's my least favorite sushi. Okay.
Yeah, but the kids love it. It's an easy one. So.
Yeah.
Food Fighters. Made the list by default, but we don't agree. Anyway. Now Trevor mentioned 9 to 5 Warriors. This is Computer Warriors from the 80s. It's not dissimilar, but I think the market was very different. So this is a Pepsi can that converts to a playset and has a little like jetpack that comes out, or a computer, or a soccer ball, a flashlight, a pencil sharpener.
Dude,
and they all just fold out and become play sets.
I have no idea what this is.
Exactly, because it failed, because it's weird.
But I like it. It's like God, what was the boys' version of Polly Pocket?
Mighty Max.
Yeah.
I think this predates Mighty Max. This is like, I mean, when you look at the computer and stuff, like this is clearly like a early
it's like 80s. Some kind of like orange screen Compy 386.
Yeah. You were lucky to be getting those 8 bits on this screen. Like it was, yeah, it definitely. There's another one. I don't have it. I don't have a picture, but there's another one that looks like it has like floppy disks. And I was like, yeah, this is clearly like of its time, which is part of the reason. Like, I think this one, like, I think that 9 to 5 line will be moderately successful because there's enough middle-aged office workers that are toy collectors to buy into it. But this would have been geared towards kids. Like, this was before, 40-year-olds buying toys, I think. I don't know how many people had a computer at home.
I gotta ask, is that Pepsi can, flashlight, and home computer to scale?
Yeah.
Like so that's like a full size like Compy 386?
Yeah.
Dude, I gotta find one. I didn't know that this existed, man.
So this was like, we were supposed to do like 3 and I did extras. This was one of my extras because I was like, this is just too weird, like, that this exists. And I had seen these around. There was another one and I can't remember what it's called. There was like these toys that were like, they were kind of the size of a credit card or a business card, and they had like a toy that would fold into them so you could like put them in a wallet. And I was like, 7-year-olds don't have wallets. This is a weird concept.
I did.
And this to me kind of falls into that category of like, 7-year-olds don't want a pencil sharpener.
I did have a wallet, by the way.
Okay, well, whatever.
It was like,
good for you.
It was like this neon green Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Velcro wallet.
I had the green one, but I think I got it a little bit later. I know the trifold one. Where yeah, I had the exact same one. I think every kid had that one.
Hell yeah.
I think that was just mailed out to every kid of a certain age in North America.
It's kind of like the fully automatic machine gun that every American child
exactly. And the Turtles
on their
wallet.
birthday, and that neon green Turtles wallet.
That was the following year's free with birth item. Yeah, these are just weird, and I think they were like, I think now this would be a really successful line, but in the moment, I think it just feels odd because the choice of items just is. I'm just thinking of display too. Like, you'd have to display them transformed.
No, I would do it just like that.
Well, I would now too,
and right? I would hide them around my room.
One of these shelves behind me would just be like a computer and a pencil sharpener. People would be like, "Why are those?" And I'd be like, "Well, funny you should ask. This one turns into this, and this one turns. This is clearly, and I've forgotten now, but I think it was like Tyco or Galoob. Like, this is clearly somebody going, well, Transformers are popular. What can we make to kind of coincide with that?
Look, I get it. I get the idea, right? If somebody comes into the boardroom, they're like, hey, people like transforming stuff, right? This Optimus Prime turns into an 18-wheeler, right? That, but think about what if it was everyday objects, You
know what this reminds me of? This is a pitch meeting where somebody goes into like their board meeting, right? And they're like, Hasbro is killing us with Transformers. What do you guys got? And the guy looks around and he's like, a computer? And another guy's like, a pencil sharpener.
It's a Pepsi.
Yeah. It was like, what do we have that we can design right now with zero effort? And they just looked around the office and like, that's how they came up with these designs.
But I get it. Man, you've really, you've kind of made me aware of some stuff that I might be looking into. Golden Girls for sure. As someone, as when I was a kid, just had to be a closeted She-Ra fan, right? Because my friends would make fun of me if I wasn't. But
Uh-huh.
luckily, my cousin who's a female. She had all of her She-Ra stuff. I had my He-Man stuff, and so when we would do sleepovers,
Uh-huh.
we'd bring our stuff and we'd play He-Man and She-Ra together. But dude, man, I really like Swiftwind. I thought Swiftwind was way cooler than Battle Cat back in the day. But
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I really wonder how many like closet She-Ra fans there were. Because I think a lot of people have the exact same
oh,
feeling. And
dude,
we're all now comfortable enough with ourselves that we're now able to come out of that closet and
yeah,
admit that we were all She-Ra fans, that whole time.
yeah, dude. I just picked up the Masterverse She-Ra,
Mm-hmm.
and if they do a Swiftwind, you betcha, I'm getting it.
Mm-hmm. There's some discussion about Canadian foods. Trevor said, "Yeah, I never heard of these." Um, but he does say he had a wallet and a pencil sharpener, so this line would have been right up his alley for sure. They are cheap either. The Pepsi can complete is $120 Canadian on eBay, but that's not that bad. That's about $12 US,
you just take a zero away.
pretty much.
No, that'd be about what? About 90 bucks American? No.
Yeah, give or take, I think.
Maybe at 90, 95, 100, maybe something like that.
I think this is like you probably get one of these, maybe two if you're lucky. Or these are also the kind of thing that you could find in like a weird like secondhand shop that they just wouldn't know what they had.
Right.
Because it's kind of one of those toy lines where people are going to be like, yeah, pencil sharpener, but it seems to not work as a pencil sharpener. Let's just
We keep just jamming them in there and nothing's happening.
check secondhand stationery area. That might be where you find a lot of these.
But even if you found one, would you know if it's complete or not? Nope.
No.
Nope. There's no way. Anyway, that's a good one. I'm definitely looking at these, and I'm looking at Golden Girls for sure.
Yeah, and these are like I said, these are like, and I kind of picked the ones where I'm like, these are pretty decent toys, but I don't know why they made them. There's like I said, there's tons of junk. Like there's probably a knockoff version of this. I didn't come across it, but it's Rock Lords. If you like Transformers, you're gonna love Rock Lords because they're robots that turn into rocks.
Do you like Transformers? Yeah. Do you like geology? Yeah. Well, if I got the toy for you, kid.
I had 2 of the 4 that are on this screen right now.
Really?
Yeah, I had the yellow one that had like a that ball is on like a string, and you could push a button on his back and it would recoil the string.
Nice.
It didn't shoot. You could just pull it out and then recoil it.
Okay.
And then the little the sort of blue one, he came with like a gun or something like that. But these are like the most rudimentary version of Transformers. Like there was no instructions required to convert these to a rock. You just tucked everything in and you were done.
They actually look a little bit more sophisticated than those McDonald's toys that they were doing for a while. I don't know if you remember those or not.
They're probably not more sophisticated, except there's probably more molds required because there's different colors.
Right.
Like that guy that has like the tan arms on the inside but blue on the outside. Like that's 2 separate pieces. It's not painted. It's just molded plastic. This was one that I thought of instantly when we thought of toys that like, why did they exist? But I absolutely had these. I had about 5 or 6 of these. And when this topic came up, I was like, yep, Rock Lords. I didn't even know what they were called. I couldn't remember what they were called. I had a Google search like Rock Transformers. Like, is that what they're called? Yeah, they were.
You know what I find interesting about toys that are kind of along this same vein, right? A toy line that came out, like a toy or a toy line that came out that didn't have an associated comic book or that didn't have an associated TV show, right? They were just hoping that they could get their figure as close as they possibly could on the toy aisle to Transformers, and maybe you would grab one of those as well, right? That was the marketing scheme, right?
Yeah,
that was the marketing plan.
Transformer,
right?
And hope for the best.
But dude, I've seen, like, when I was at Legion's Con, I saw a lot of people there that are actually making their own smaller like indie lines of toys that would fit right in that genre. Because this makes me nostalgic for something else. It definitely wasn't Rock Lords, and it wasn't GoBots either, but there was another one that I remember having
Oh,
a
there was
couple of.
tons.
Yeah, a couple. I definitely had when I was a kid. They were not Transformers for sure, right?
Mhm,
But I think they were close enough on, in the aisle on the pegs to where
mhm.
a couple of them wound up coming home.
Larry Reed, who is a massive Transformers fan, and anytime I need clarification on a Transformers question, I reach out to Larry. He said they're GoBots subline. I had no idea.
Hmm.
Aaron said I had one. God, they were awful. GoBots were better, and that is saying something. This one made me chuckle a little bit. Trev said, "So you could have a robot or a rock, huh?" Absolutely.
It's just like put all of your action figures that are in their disguise mode like together like around your room, like there's a Pepsi can with a rock beside it, and like
Yeah, I got my computer warriors over here and my rock lords over here, and it looks
where
like
I don't see anything.
They're like, I
They're
thought you were a collector. It turns out you're just a nerd with rocks and computers. Like, no, you don't understand. They turn into robots and play sets. They're cool.
You can't even play Oregon Trail on this computer you got here.
You know what? There's probably absolutely somebody who like exclusively collects all these lines that we're talking about. I just realized that somebody's shelf behind them is all the stuff where somebody looks at it and goes like, I have no idea what any of this is.
Okay.
And they're like, that's the point.
Yeah, that's the
I'm
point.
that guy.
Oh, they're like the craft beer aficionado of the toy industry. You know, you take a sip of something. Oh, what's this called? Oh, this is called a triple cosmic moose head.
You're like,
but
it's an IPA, and they're like, yeah, isn't it very distinct? And you're like, no, it tastes hoppy and gross.
Yeah,
like every IPA.
But it has a. Can you really? You can really get those those amber notes that are in there a little bit. So, I can just imagine being like one of those guys, or like when you ask somebody what their favorite band is, and they intentionally tell you something that you know, or they know you haven't heard of, just because they want to.
Oh, you never heard of them? Well, let me tell you, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, okay.
And please don't start listening to them because that'll make them commercial, right?
Yeah.
And I can't have that.
My old favorite band was really great, and then I talked about it too much, and then they sold too many records 30 years after they were released, and now I'm not a fan anymore.
Yeah, now they've gone mainstream, so I can't really mess with them anymore.
Larry said there's a GoBots versus Rock Lords movie, so there you go. Some homework. Exactly, right? Like, anyways, Rock Transformers. Last but not least, I thought you'd like this one. Jeremy, take it away.
Why does this exist?
Why does this exist?
This exists specifically for an overweight man-child that I know by the name of Ryan Laserpants Farnham. Because if you can fit a 112 figure in it, he will buy it regardless of the quality or aesthetic appeal. But if a 112 scale action figure will go inside of it, Ryan will purchase it. And it's become a meme at this point on the 3POA channel. He knows how much I hate it. Every time, this image right here is like nails on a chalkboard to me personally. I think it looks dumb. But there are people that disagree with me. But I think there are some people that disagree with me just because they're trying to get at me because they know how much I dislike it.
Yeah, right? I think there's a bit of that going on. I don't get the point of it. I get it's a Bratz car. If you're a Bratz collector and you have this, great. I completely understand. My kid likes Rainbow High, and she has a Rainbow High car. It would fit 6-inch figures too, and it color changes. I'm just throwing it out there. But yeah, I don't get this thing.
I don't get it. I stand in solidarity with Tony Roberts. Us military guys got to stick together anyway. But he is firmly on the anti-Bratz team, where I find myself as well. And having someone like Tony Roberts there, I would say that I'm in good company. And I don't plan on budging at any point in time.
I will allow this vehicle if you are customizing it to be a Neutrinos car. That's where I will allow this. But a stock one of these, forget it. That's
if you made it purple. If you made it purple and you were doing I'm thinking of that shredder
Oh, the foot, yeah, the foot. What's it called? But the foot car, yeah, there was like
Yeah.
purple and black. Yeah, I
But
could
but
see that.
it was a Cadillac style convertible as
Mhm.
well.
This one, to do the neutrinos, you'd had to add a couple like exhaust pipes. You'd have to cover the wheels. It could be red, but you'd add a little bit to it. But I think, as a base for a custom, okay.
Mhm.
But a 40-plus-year-old man buying this just to put his action dolls in, forget it.
Larry Reed says that buy that and make it the Ghost Rider. It's cheaper than HasLabs. You know what else is cheaper than HasLabs? The Batmobeast from Todd McFarlane is a massive, all-terrain vehicle that 1/12 scale figures will fit in the driver's seat for, and you get that for $49.99 American, the vehicle and a Batman figure.
And a figure. Yeah.
So the Foot Cruiser. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Aaron mentioned the Foot Cruiser was what that one was called.
So we're ending this on a joke, right? This was a personal jab at me, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's the last slide.
Because you know how much I hate it.
I just thought it would be fun to add that one in because that's. I said to you before. I said this to you the other day. I said it makes for such a good bit that I understand why Ryan won't let it die.
It's not a bit.
I know.
And that's the thing about it. It's not a bit. Like my general animosity towards that piece of plastic right there is not. It's not manufactured.
Your emotion is genuine. Yes.
Right. I'm not fabricating any responses to that.
But that's what makes the bit that much more effective.
It's not a bit. It's not a bit. It's real for me, damn it.
I get it. Ryan is not considering your feelings when he talks about the Bratz car.
Yeah, he's not. He's not. And I think as someone who knows my worth, I think that he should be a little bit more considerate to the way I feel about things before he says what he says and makes me feel
but
good.
I put it in there because I happen to agree with you. I think the design of that car does not fit the aesthetic of most 6-inch figures. It should not and will not ever be in my collection, and it should not be in other people's collections as well.
Unless you're collecting Bratz.
Exactly. Collect what you want. If you have a shelf of Bratz, if one of these shelves contains Bratz, it may contain that car. I can understand.
I will never tell anyone not to buy something for their collection. I'm not going to be that guy. I will never tell you not to buy something. Now, I will tell you, I will communicate my, how do I word this politely? How disappointed I might be in you, right? Yeah. So anyway, well, hey, this was a really fun show, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that actually a couple of new properties that I didn't know existed are floating around in my head now. I'm going to look at Golden Girls as soon as we go off the air here.
Keep me posted because I'm curious what you find.
I am too, and I hope I'm not let down. Hopefully this could be like my next one that I wind up completing, right? So that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it could definitely be one of those ones, and that's the thing with these lines, right? When you look at like Food Fighters is crazy expensive, but some like Starship Troopers can be. But
Carmen from Starship Troopers is, I think she's kind of rare.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
I think there was less of her in the cases than the other figures because I think they were like, boys don't want the girl figure.
Female figures, yeah, exactly.
So, but I do know that she's pricey, but I think you can get a Johnny Rico in one of the
one of the neon decos. Those are cheap.
The Riddlers. Yeah.
Anyway, Jeremy, where can people follow you? Where can people kind of see what you're up to?
You can find me on Facebook at Jeremy. You can find me on Instagram at Authority Figure Studios. And then every other Wednesday, you can find me on the Loose But Complete podcast that is on the 3POA channel.
And Ryan is loose butt and you are complete, correct?
Yes. Yeah, completely disappointed in his 1/12 scale Bratz car decision making. That's completely disappointed.
And I totally dropped the ball and didn't put those links in the description below, but I will as soon as we are done.
It's fine. There's a lot of familiar faces here. I think you know, I
Yeah,
think
but you
everybody
never
knows where to
know.
find me.
Somebody might stumble across this by accident and make it an hour and 40 minutes in before they realize they want to follow us. And on
Well,
that note, like, follow, subscribe, give a thumbs down or up if you're so inclined. Hit the notifications for more videos. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure as always, Jeremy. We'll have you back on again. Stay tuned. In the next few weeks, we're gonna do some more kind of top figures of the year, top most anticipated stuff like that. I'm gonna have a lot of stuff to unbox. I may do a live on Christmas Day just to do a live unboxing of all my stuff. That a lot of it I know is coming, but there's stuff that I don't even know that's coming. It's great being 40 and getting toys under the Christmas tree again. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, everybody in the chat. And thank you to anybody that is watching after the fact. We will talk to you guys all again very, very soon. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
bye everybody.